Nebraska. I will be serving as your facilitator and timer, and the judges will introduce themselves, and good luck.
Please be
Good
seated.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tim Murphy. I am from the University of Chicago, where I work in their continuing ed division, doing a lot of their civic education initiatives. And I will let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Jane Warren. I'm an attorney in Massachusetts, and I also teach at Bristol Community College in Massachusetts. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Gass. I'm director of the Center for School Reform at Pioneer Institute. It's a Boston-based think tank that does research on K-12 education reform.
You want to introduce yourselves and your coaches?
My name is Daniel Szuzinski. I'm a junior.
My name is Madeline Job. I am also a junior.
And my name is Nick Corin. I'm also a junior, and this is our teacher, Jeff Reiman.
Oh, nice
you
to
very
meet
much.
you.
Thanks very much for coming, Jeff.
So this is Unit 1, and we've chosen question 1 from Unit 1, and I'll read it in its entirety to you. Unit 1, what are the philosophical and historical foundations of the American political system? Question 1, why did the founders prefer a republican form of government to a democracy? Does such sentiment exist today? Explain your response, and two sub-questions to put on the table. What evidence, if any, is there that suggests that the United States has evolved from being a republic to being a democratic republic? And what civic dispositions among the people are required for the healthy functioning of a democratic republic? Should government encourage these civic dispositions, which promote a healthy, functioning democratic republic? If not, why not? And if so, how? Tyler, please begin.
Were the founding fathers selfless heroes, valiantly sacrificing their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor in signing the Declaration of Independence, or selfish demagogues, seeking to protect their wealth and influence? Historian Charles Beard argued the founding fathers favored a republican form of government to protect their own property from being seized by the majority. But in Federalist 10, Publius supported a republic in a large and diverse society like America, because as he wrote, democracies are short in their lives as they are violent in their deaths. The founding fathers may have sought to protect their own wealth, but they also sought to improve the country's welfare.
Greek philosophers like Polybius and Aristotle theorized that a cyclical progression of government would lead to decay. A monarchy would degenerate into tyranny, an aristocracy into oligarchy, and a democracy into an autocracy. To correct this, Polybius theorized in The Rise of the Roman Empire that we should take the best system of government to be the one that combines all three. The Constitution attempted to do this. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution incorporates a democracy by empowering the people of the several states to elect their representatives. Article 1, Section 3 and Article 3, Section 1 incorporate an aristocracy, where a limited number of senators or judges make decisions independent of the people's will, and Article 2 establishes a single executive who can single-handedly reject acts of Congress and act decisively as commander-in-chief, as Publius recommended in Federalist 70.
We have fallen prey to Aristotle's and Polybius's warnings. Over time, the phrase all men are created equal in our Declaration of Independence has cemented itself into our political culture, placing more emphasis on democracy. And so the 15th Amendment granted African American suffrage, the 17th Amendment established the direct election of senators, the 19th Amendment granted women's suffrage, the 24th Amendment banned poll taxes, and the 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18.
This trend towards democracy is also seen at a state level. 26 state constitutions empower the people to vote in petition initiatives and referenda. Colorado has gone furthest of all. The Colorado Taxpayer Bill of Rights, approved in 1992 by petition initiative, requires voter approval to increase any taxes, controlling state spending, but on an inflation-adjusted basis. Since 1992, Colorado has decreased education funding by $2,000 per student. This is precisely why the framers preferred a republic.
As Polybius predicted, we're not likely to eliminate these democratic reforms, but to maintain our democratic republic, people require certain civic dispositions. One is civic virtue. Aristotle wrote that society precedes the individual, placing the interests of society above his own. This begins with voting. To combat our disappointing turnout rate of 47% in the 2018 election, we support the H.R. 1 bill, which proposes Election Day to be a national holiday, creating more voting opportunities. We also support Colorado's voting policies, which consist of mail-in ballots and a 22-day window for voting, inspiring a turnout rate of 76% in 2018.
Political tolerance is equally important in a functioning republic, but it is rarely seen. Given the fact that John Adams called Thomas Jefferson a half-breed Indian squaw during the 1800 presidential election, it shouldn't be surprising that President Trump's supporters demand he lock up his political opponents. Even so, we should demand civility from our leaders and each other.
A Harvard study found that education is strongly related to tolerance, even towards unpopular groups. To maintain a democratic republic, people must make well-informed decisions and respect others' beliefs. It is the proper role of government to promote unbiased civic education programs like We the People or Justice O'Connor's iCivics program, so long as the government doesn't use public education to engage in propaganda, unlike the Hitler Jugend, which brainwashed children into believing Nazi Germany's bigoted beliefs. We are now ready for your questions.
Thank you. If you could use only one term to describe the United States, would that be republic or a democracy? Which term would you use and why would you use it?
I would use democracy. For example, we have things like the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which abolished literacy tests allowing African Americans to vote and solidifying the 15th Amendment. You also have things like the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which made Poles wheelchair accessible, allowing them to vote.
I believe that our country is actually a republic, so I disagree with my group mate. And this is largely because in our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, we name the United States a republic as we do so.
Yes, and to support my group mate, we also see the foundations of a republic clearly present in the Constitution as the one time in which democracy is present, or the Founding Fathers wanted democracy, is in Article 2, Section 1, in which we have the direct election of we have the election of representatives. That's the only time any of us will be able to have the most direct effect in our government besides education and supporting each other through civic virtue.
John Adams, who drafted the 1790 Constitution of Massachusetts, was a staunch proponent of bicameralism as a way to check the democratic impulses of popular government. Why does the Senate matter so much to a Republican form of government?
A Senate matters so much to a Republican form of government because because initially in Article 1, Section 3, Article 1, Section 3, the Senate, they were chosen by the state legislatures, and because of this, they made decisions as supported in Federalist 10, independent of the people's will.
However, we see the use of a Senate, or at least the viability of a Senate, decrease over time as eventually senators became corrupt, with political graft being rampant until the 17th Amendment, which enabled for the direct election of senators by the people. So senators would be more receptive to their constituency rather than political graft or political machines.
Another contemporary issue that sort of gets to the heart of this democratic impulse versus Republican sort of check on that is the Electoral College. And multiple states have passed initiatives to abolish the Electoral College. So I wonder if the three of you could talk a little bit about that. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on the issue and maybe spelling out what's at stake in that debate.
I believe that it would be harmful, well, not exactly harmful, but it wouldn't be beneficial to outlaw or abolish the Electoral College completely, because in its essence, there is no evidence that the people are more likely to make a better choice than the Electoral College. And with our winner-takes-all system, this guarantees that the results will be very similar.
Yeah, the recent National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which our state Colorado is a part of, essentially apportions electors based on the popular vote of that state. I would actually support this, but I also agree with my groupmate in the fact that it may not make a huge difference. only recently we've seen President Donald Trump elected while losing the popular vote but winning the election. But this is seen as an outlier in terms of the other 40 presidents that we've had who have won both the popular and presidency.
I would like to disagree with my groupmate because in Federalist 55, the original intention of the Electoral College was because the people were uninformed. And also you have a quote that said, "A mob of Socrates is still a mob." As seen with like the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, you still have a lot of people motivated by their passion and prejudice, as echoed in Federalist 10. So I believe that a bunch of well-informed people making these decisions is still the best choice because it's human nature.
Can you give any examples of countries that call themselves republics that are not democratic? What evidence is there that they are not democratic?
Well, one instance is the People's Republic of China, and we do not see democracy here at all. For instance, in the northwest Jiangxing province, we see over 1 million Muslims put in re-education camps for seemingly no purpose. And in addition, it's just completely tyrannical. But compared with democracy and compared with other states, it seems to be just absolutely unforgivable and just completely,
Good answer.
Thanks very much. I have a few things to say by way of feedback. It's reassuring to see some young people so well versed in their state politics as opposed to just what's going on in D.C. A lot of work gets done at the state and local level, so that's reassuring. I also like using historic examples to shed light on present day situations, especially with the John Adams quote against Jefferson, and then how far off are we from the current guy in the White House. So there's a long history of that, and you do well to point to it. And I also think that you guys disagreeing amongst yourself is good and healthy for a million reasons, but not the least of which, these are really complicated and complex, nuanced sort of issues. So consensus doesn't come easy. And I think your respective disagreements are reflective of that.
Thank you. I think you did a really nice job. And when you opened up and you talked about the amendments, I was happy that you have an historical understanding of the fights that we went through, the difficulties in getting the right to vote. You talked about direct democracy, that 27 states now have initiative, referendum, and recall. You talked about tolerance and civility. And as an attorney, if we are ever disrespectful in any courtroom to either the judge or to our colleagues, or swear or anything along those lines, we are sanctioned at least $1,000 per violation. So, you're young and you're juniors, and to understand the discourse in the country today and the lack of civility, and you should always look to achieve a greater type of civility that we're not seeing today. You talked about tolerance. I was impressed with that. A few of you touched on that. You talked about China. I was very impressed that you went right to China and talked about that. So I think you did a really nice job.
I agree, echo a lot of what my colleagues say, and I want to thank you and your teacher and your parents for all your hard work. There are a couple things I just mentioned quickly. First mention of Polybius, the Roman historian who had a profound impact on the founders, particularly on bicameralism. I think we heard the first time today you mentioned the Declaration of Independence, actually, and the way in which you connected that with all men created equal and kind of democratizing impulse, right, that we find. I like your quote from John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. It's not one that I've heard before, and I think it's really great because it reminds us that it wasn't croquet that these guys were playing back then. We think things are tough now, but Alexander Hamilton was killed in a duel by the Vice President of the United States. So it's that I think it's important, and then finally in your introductory remarks you talked about iCivics, but also the concern about propagandizing, right? Schools shouldn't be propagandizing. Educators should be ensuring kids are civically educated without putting their thumb on the scale. But you're great on one final thing. Actually, your mention of the quote from James Madison about Socrates. That's a question that I have used. You preempted me, which I think shows you how, for a small team, and again, especially for juniors, like what, you guys really know your stuff. So it's really, really well done. Excellent job.
Thank you so much.